Hello to all my Diversity Matters subscribers. My name is Oscar Holmes IV, and I really appreciate your support. And to show you how much I appreciate your support, as a Diversity Matters subscriber, you get exclusive access to listen to Beyond the Mill, my live diversity dialogues talk show that I created and host on campus at Rutgers University-Camden. Now, because it's a live show and recorded using a different system, the audio quality isn't as consistent at times, but I promise you, the guests and content are great and you'll love the show. Plus, if you're ever in the area, please join us to be a part of our live audience so that you can enjoy, listen, learn, network, and ask our guests questions in real time. Enjoy the show. So we have some special guests today to talk about the African Diasporic experiences, and we're going to talk about what that means with our special guest. So I want you to please join me in welcoming our special guest. First, we have Dr. Eleizer Marcellus. I can't speak French well, but come on up, Eleizer. He's the Assistant Dean for the Office of Academic Advising, so I'm sure many of you have probably met with him and seen him. And we also have Ms. Marla Carter. She's an assistant professor of professional practice in the School of Social Work. So please join me in welcoming them both. Good morning.
Good morning.
So I'd like to start this by asking people, what brought you here to Rutgers? So Marla, let's start with you. What brought you here to Rutgers?
Well, first let me just say thank you for having me.
Of course.
I committed to this 5 months ago, not knowing what I was committing to, but knowing that I was going to be here in any way to support my brother.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Thank you.
And yes, and then surprisingly finding out 2 weeks ago what we were talking about, I was like, wait, what? But feeling very confident that I can speak about my experience, and we're going to talk about some other things too. So I came to Rutgers, from the womb. So my dad was in the School of Social Work in 1966, and 30 years later, I ended up following in his footsteps and going into the field of social work by way of Rutgers, New Brunswick, getting my master's degree in social work, focusing on macro approaches, very much interested in addressing social problems. So following in his footsteps again, he was an elected official, got involved in some of the political things, and I think we're gonna talk about that later. But my work in the field brought me back to the school as a lecturer, and they wanted me just to share my own practice wisdom. One visit turned into 2 visits, turned into being the president of the Alumni Council, and the school and the dean making a way for someone who does not have a PhD to be an assistant professor in the School of Social Work, because it is a field that does require understanding how it looks in practice. So for the last 2 years, I've been named Professor of the Year at Rutgers. And it's even a greater achievement in that the School of Social Work is on all 3 campuses, and Camden has the smallest School of Social Work. So the fact that I was able to achieve that with the least amount of students speaks volumes to, I think, the amazing students that we have here. And so that's how I came here, and I'm glad that I'm here. Live in Delaware, so I cross the Ben Franklin every day, and it's worth it.
Thank you. Sure. That's the correct French pronunciation.
So, Eliezer Marcellus.
See? I couldn't do that. That was good.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Pastor, for having me. Thank you for allowing me to share my experiences. I grew up here in Camden, but when I went to the Wilson High School, and when I was leaving high school, I applied to Rutgers, and I did not get accepted. That was the loss.
Right.
But and not because I wasn't a good student at that time, but I think my SAT scores wasn't the best. I'm okay with that. Still, so I went to Warren University. I got my undergrad there, my master's. in 2006, after I finished my master's, I got a job at King University. And I was commuting from down here to King every day. I was working for a pre-college program called the Gear Up program, where we have students from like background similar as I am to transition into college and university. And the program, with my first year there, the program folded. The university did not give me the grant, and so I was out of a job. And I applied for a position in development, and I got the job. I was working for a year program. So I worked there for 9 years. But Camden is my roots, and I grew up here. And once I left Haiti, when I was 11 years old, I moved here in Camden. This is home. And a lot of the work that I've done here to mentoring my own mentors that I have from the city. And once I graduated, I started mentoring students here in this, or kids here in the city. I always wanted to be back in this area. So I work in New Brunswick, and I continue back and forth to come down here to do the best I can to help. So I've been at Rutgers. A lot of my work focused on students of color, specifically Black male and Hispanic male, help them to transition and to graduate, to retain and graduate them from the university. A year ago, I applied for a position here in Camden, and I was able to get the job. Do I miss New Brunswick? Yes, but I came down here with an open heart, an open mind, and it's been a good experience for me so far.
Great, great. So the title of this show today is the African Diaspora Experience, and some of you probably thinking like, what is that? So, Eleizer, from Haiti, grew up here in Camden, Marla, Delaware roots. Philadelphia roots. Live in Delaware now, here in Jersey. So I'm from Virginia, King and Queen County. So it's a small town outside of Richmond, about an hour outside of Richmond. And in Virginia, this year we are celebrating the 400th anniversary of the arrival of our ancestors, right, who were enslaved here. So that's the diaspora. We are all across the world in a sense, but especially in America. So we just want to talk about those different experiences and how we grew up in celebration of Black History Month, which is one of my favorite months. And it's kind of like Black History Semester because we have like Martin Luther King Day in January, so we celebrate all through February. Then March is Women's History Month, so it's like Black Women's History Month. So we're just celebrating all through the semester of Black History, right? So tell us how you like to celebrate Black History Month.
Well, I celebrate 12 months of the year.
Right.
That's how it's unfortunate that we have the shortest month of the year. That way, the rest of the world wants to highlight our accomplishment and the things that we went through as people in this nation of the world. For me, I say I celebrate every week because I am living proof of it, and I look at what coming from Haiti, what Haiti meant to the world in terms of Black history, right? If people don't know what Haiti's history is, we were the first to be free from slavery. To free slave, period, say enough is enough with slavery, and we was able to provide the rest of the world with a blueprint on how to end slavery. But here in America or across the world, our history as Haitian, people doesn't really talk about that, right? So you won't really hear what Haiti meant to the rest of the world in terms of history. So what I try to do is really highlight not what my ancestors, and I'm talking about Haitian ancestors, but also what happened here in this great land of America, right? How our ancestors were able to overcome and the thing that we still struggle with today, right? The slavery, racism, discrimination, all these different things. We have to celebrate these things, right? The small wins and the big wins that we have been able to overcome throughout our time in this land. So I try to do it for my own children, educate them why it's important for you to know where you come from. Because if you don't know where you come from, how are you going to know where you want to go, right? So it's very important for us to know our history, to highlight it, and stop letting people say only time we matter is that.
Yeah, I too celebrate it, of course, all year long. But I think during the month of February, I'm very conscious of the fact that it's not only about me celebrating it, but there's a sense of responsibility that I carry in making sure that others have a deeper understanding and love for our culture, our history. I see some of my students in the back row, and it doesn't matter what class I'm teaching, whether it's practice 2 or diversity and oppression or women's issues, I will find a way to put some blackness in that class. You know, and I think it's important that it's not separated out, right? That it is included in the way that we look at everything. My daughter is 15, my son is 20, and she last week she said, "Mom, can I wear your sweatshirt?" I have a sweatshirt so I'm 52. I know I look 32. Thank you very much. But I was in college in the 80s and very politically active, trying to divest from South Africa, all of that. And I had a sweatshirt that said "Imported from Africa," and on the back it said, "And I didn't ask to come." And so she goes to a predominantly white Quaker school. And she's like, "Mom, can I wear your Imported from Africa sweatshirt?" I was like, "Yes." Tell me how it turns out. So, you know, I look for ways to encourage and inspire younger generations to have the courage to have those difficult conversations. That's what I think Black history shouldn't be something that we have to teach. You know, it should be just a part of our conversations, just like any other history of a people. And so I'm very much in celebrating it just in everything that I do, right? So.
How did it turn out for her?
Oh, she rocked it. Yeah. Oh, yeah. She's getting her braids on Friday.
I love it. Yeah. So you brought up Haiti and how important it is to our history overall. And I know you have a nonprofit. Can you talk to us about how you started the nonprofit, the circumstances we all know about the work that happened, and where you put that nonprofit and Haiti to be able to go?
Yeah. So in 2010, Haiti suffered a major devastating earthquake that killed 300,000 people, left more than 700,000 homeless. I lost 10 cousins in the earthquake. And I still remember that day, just like it was yesterday. I was at work at 4:45. I received a phone call from one of my uncles who was in Haiti, say, just calling, checking in. And at that time, I was working in New Brunswick, and I used to commute down here in Camden. And so my routine was, I go to work, then I go to the gym, and then I go home. So we talk on my way back home. I left my phone in the car and I went to the gym. From 6 to 7:45, I had 40 missed calls from family members saying, "Have you heard what's going on?" So a friend of mine texted me and say, "Did you hear what happened in Haiti?" And I said, "No." I told him, I said, "You know what, because I just talked to my uncle and everything was fine." And when I got home, I called, right before I got home, my father called and said, "We've been calling you. Have you heard what happened?" And then when I went home and I opened the news and I saw what happened. That same night, because of my involvement in the community and through our church that we had here, I was receiving a lot of phone calls from the people in the community that knew my Asian friends and grew up to school with. And they say, "Well, what are you going to do? What are you going to do to help?" And I said, "Well, I don't know." So the next day, I got a group of people together. We went to church and we prayed. And it became a community meeting. A group of people started to come out and we started talk about what can we do. Hargrove, Mr. Hargrove, one of Hargrove Demolition, called me, say, "I have a warehouse that you can use if you want to use it for supplies that you want to collect and send to Haiti." Within 3 months, I had And I had a warehouse that was bigger than the size of the gym that we have here, filled top to bottom of supplies, medical supplies, and water and things. But here's the mistake that I made. I didn't collect any money. Right? So I had a warehouse that big, full of supplies, but how am I going to get it? So, and the earthquake happened in January, February, March, and April started getting warm. And Mr. Hargrave said, listen, Marcellus, I remember the conversation just like, it's getting warm outside. My warehouse was temporary. You need to get your stuff out. So one night I got a phone call from Senator Leidenberg, who passed away a few years ago. And he said to me, I heard of the work that you're doing in South Jersey. I'm gonna connect you with another brother doing the same type of work you're doing in North Jersey. Can you guys work together? And I will help you guys send stuff to Haiti. And so I took a drive up. I met with the staff, some of the staff from his office, and we drove to Elizabeth. They had a warehouse twice the size of mine, and we was doing 3 containers a week. 23 containers that cost $7,000-8,000 to ship. So within the first 6 months of the earthquake, we did more than $1.5 million supplies, medical supplies, and $7,000 and to help with the earthquake. So from there, we became New Jersey for Haiti. That's the name of my organization. And every year, I go to Haiti about 2 to 3 times a year. I've been to Haiti since the earthquake. I've been to Haiti 23 times. We focus on education, clean water, agriculture, and any other ways that we can help the country. So that's what my organization does. I actually just came back 3 weeks ago. When I went away, I took a group of students from here. So it's the first time that I was able to do a trip with all students. They had a great experience. Their office, so thankful that they allowed me to take the students to see the country, the work that we're doing. Just a plug, I actually do have a trip coming up this August. So if you're interested, please feel free to see. But the nonprofit is working. I know it's a lot.
No, you're good.
The work is working, but Haiti has a major challenge. Ahead of them. Haiti has been suffering for years. I always say, for us to be free, first to be free from slavery, we are still paying today for that. Whether it is natural disaster, or whether it is bad policy by the international community, or whether it is our own doing. Haiti has been paying for it ever since.
So, definitely, let's give him a hand. Losing that many family members at one time.
It was hard. I remember the first time, because the summer, a few months before the earthquake, I was in Haiti burying my grandmother. And I was with all these people. And then I went back, I saw the country, and you know what the hardest part for me? I went from January, February, March, April, May. June was my first time back in Haiti after the earthquake. I did not grieve. While my family, everyone went through the process, I did not. And I had an emotional breakdown the first day I went into the country because I'm not used to or just seeing the country like that, seeing my family like that. And I'm so thankful that we were able to bury the people of our family. Haiti there's an area that is dedicated to the dead. There's more than 300,000 people that buried in one mountain. So 3 weeks ago, we celebrated the 90th anniversary of the earthquake. There was a major ceremony that was done there. So we drove right past it the day we was coming back from Haiti. And if you see it, it's just shocking to know that many people buried from one event had took that many lives of all those people out there.
So if we shift just a little bit, Marla, you have done so many amazing things. But one of the things that I just learned about was your TEDx talk on how to be colorful. So could you explain to the audience what you meant by how to be colorful and your journey through, your personal story and the changes that you've gone through?
Well, before I share my journey in understanding race in a very unique way, I just want to, I'm still very moved and appreciative of your work. And I think one of the things, being somebody that is a macro social worker, that's somebody that operates in the areas of politics and policy, I want everyone to understand is that he said Senator Lautenberg was integral in making this happen. And oftentimes we discount politics, or I don't like it because it's messy, but in order for us to really make any change, you have to be involved in the process. And if you look at the history over the 400 years, this is the 400th year. 1619 was when the first slave ship arrived to Jamestown. 400 years, and we are still dealing with, right, the ramifications of that triangular trade that happened. And so, to know that we can do things in the political arena, if we have the right relationships and if we have the right people in office. I'm very much, and we will talk about my politics too, and how I'm committed to getting people in office that care about vulnerable populations, because that's what social workers do. So my personal, just very unique journey through race and racism started, I grew up in the 60s, 70s, Black Power. I was very happy in my Blackness. My culture was huge to me. And married a handsomely chocolate brown man, and had my perfect family. And then one day a white spot appeared on my arm. And that white spot was diagnosed as vitiligo. And I was told, well, there's really nothing you can do. That was I was 32, so that was 20 years ago. Over the course of that 20-year period, my skin got lighter and lighter. What you see now is makeup and a spray tan. I am white. And the reason why I tan, and I still wear my makeup that I wore before I lost my pigmentation, is because my identity was tied to my racial experience prior to, right? I was and am a Black woman. And to lose that part of me was difficult. And so I struggled with that. And it was hard to put, to really speak to it in a way that people understood that discrimination was real. And that's when I realized that this was an opportunity for me to say to people, you can't deny that race matters, because I have been both brown and fair. And the treatment that this woman gets is different than what I got when I was browner. When I was in a store, I was followed, right? When I spoke, I was angry, not passionate, right? Every stereotype of the angry Black woman that they will be talking about tonight was who I was. Now, I am an articulate, racially ambiguous, right? Not threatening.
Come on now.
Right?
Yeah.
And that bothered me because it wasn't right. So I said, you've got to use this to let people know that you can't be colorblind because you're not blind to color. And you're doing a disservice to so many people because we all have a story to tell that is tied to the way that the world sees us. So respect it, and then learn about it, and then learn to love it. Move from that ethnocentric worldview to that ethno-relative one, where you really are accepting beyond just like, I see you. No, I like that. I love that. We're not going to get there if you don't act like it's no big deal. It's a big deal. And I'm still evolving and finding a way to make sense of it, right? I'm in H&M with my daughter. Jay-Z comes on. I'm singing every word. And everybody's looking at me. I'm like, oh, hell, I forgot to put on my makeup. They think I'm a white woman with Brooklyn, right? There's a lot that comes with this, right? But as a nation, as a world, we're doing that as well. We're trying to make sense of it. But we're not going to get there if we're not being our authentic selves, which is the colorfulness that I speak of. Be who you are. You're black, be black. Don't try to act like you, don't be code switching all the time. Just show up and make them make sense of that. In your whiteness, don't try to be down with the cause. Be white, you know? We will be able to learn, understand, and respect each other if we just be colorful. So that's what my TED Talk is about.
So we're going to make that go viral. So if you haven't seen it, make sure you Google.
It's very short.
Carter.
Yeah, it's only 8 minutes.
Yeah, it's real quick. It's really great. So
it was really hard. Yeah. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done because I was being vulnerable to the entire world. And I actually put up a slide of my back as it was transitioning from black to white. So you can see the depigmentation happen over time.
All right, so we have more questions, but this is a talk show, so it's interactive. So let's take the questions from the audience. We'll start us off. Neal.
Hello. Thank you for coming and bringing this to awareness. And I just really like the ideology that you use in correlation to the change of your color. And and I think that this is really interesting to me because I'm also a first-generation immigrant, and as I evolved from one nation to another, what you do is you tend to pick up characteristics, and sometime between there, you may lose a tad bit track of your own roots. How do you advise us to bring this to attention in a more intellectual way to the society so we can not just stop in the structural or the color phase, but more so understanding why people make such decisions.
Mm-hmm. So why do we take on the dominant culture? Because we know that's how you get paid. Number one, right? You accepted, doors open. And a lot of individuals are not willing to make the sacrifice for the greater good. They're afraid, right? They don't want to. It's taking a chance. I have a colleague here. She'll tell you, I'll be in a faculty meeting and I will straight up just say what I think, right? You take chances when you're that authentic, when you're holding on to who you are, and it's risky. And I think sometimes and I'm speaking to all of you, we like to play it safe, right? If you look at the policies in government, they're not extremes. They play it safe. Everybody's looking for that centrist candidate, right? So I think it's really having the courage to really be that thing, but it's also having the ability to surround yourself with like-minded people, so that when you're going through that difficult time, you have other people that can kind of encourage, support, and surround you. You know what I mean? Give you their "girl, I hear you," or we need that support. And I think that that's another thing that's beautiful about Rutgers-Camden is that the diversity and the different opportunities to find your place is offered here. So you find your place, but then you take that into other spaces. It takes a lot of courage. It really does. Let me ask you a question. In your challenge for trying to be that self, what are you afraid of?
I'm not really afraid.
Okay.
But I think that sometimes what happens is you just want to know how to best deal with certain circumstances that are reflected onto you. Mm-hmm. rather than your perception, because I think it's much easier to understand yourself, but sometimes the discontent is the reflection of other people onto you and how you best interact with that.
So academically, facts, right? Professionally, success. Academically, facts. Whenever I'm preparing candidates, I say to them, 2 statistics and a fact. You can say a whole bunch of other stuff. You say 2 statistics, people think you're brilliant. And you back it up with a fact that everybody agrees on, right? 2 statistics and a fact. And they're like, oh, well, maybe she's right, right? Use that. And in the professional world, succeed. Then they're like, well, maybe that's not true. Your success is the thing that dispels the stereotype, right? The fact that I am sitting here, an MSW degree is a terminal degree. It is for practitioners. A PhD is for academia, right? But in the faculty meetings, as they are speaking of theories, I'm able to say, this is how that theory looked in community. So I'm equally as important, right? You have to find your own successes, know how to leverage them, so that's the challenge, right? It's just you winning, right? Shine. Shine. Just shine.
Thank you.
I was gonna ask, does it ever get easier, and what do you do in circumstances where, every day I walk out of the house, I know that my hair looks like this, I know that I will be pointed out as being black, and I'm often confronted with people's biases that can't be changed with statistics or with facts. And for example, I'm half Indian, my mom is an immigrant, and yesterday I had a new roommate move in and go on a 20-minute rant about Indians and how she thought they were dirty and this and that. And I know that I can spit a fact with her. I can spit
Did you spell it? But did you say, I'm
yeah. She her roommate had a bucket in their room, and I know growing up, my mom used to use a bucket. She had really long hair, so she would use it to wash her hair. And my roommate believed, she was under the notion that her old roommate used the bucket to use the restroom and just all very strange bias that I just knew wasn't true. And then one of my other roommates who met her in a different setting and wasn't in the room had talked to her about the same thing and asked her did the bucket smell? What made you think that? She was no, it didn't, but she just didn't use the bathroom. And I know that these are personal biases that people bring to the conversation. I even have a really good friend who happens to be Chinese but immerses herself in Black culture. She only dates Black men. She only dates athletic type people. Only listens to Black music. Follows a lot of Black culture to the point where she knows more about pop culture than I do. She knows more about the love and hip hop characters than I do. And she'll come to me. I had a very interesting conversation with her for 2 hours. And she went on about how she thought the majority of Black men had been to jail. The majority of Hispanic people worked as cleaning people, etc. The majority of Vietnamese people worked in nail salons, and I was I just brought up straight facts to her, and it was throwing dark, it was just not getting anywhere,
Right.
And this is someone who considers themselves quote unquote down with culture,
right?
And who interacts with the culture every day,
right?
And so as someone who's mixed, as someone who's Black, has Black identity and Indian identity, is still understanding their own identity, I'm confronted with these obstacles on a daily basis.
Right.
And
so how do you deal with it? Does it get easier?
Right.
How do you deal with it?
Right.
Do you want to go before?
So, education is always touted as the great equalizer.
Right.
And while obtaining higher education definitely can open doors for you, and it can give you privileges, because as you ascend different socioeconomic statuses, you definitely have more choices. So it gets better in that sense. But racism, sexism, all of it never ends. I have a PhD, I still experience so much of that racism. So that never ends. It gets better in the sense I can have more choice. I have privilege, right? I can, I'm not living paycheck to paycheck, things like that. So, but it never ends, as you said.
Yeah, I think you choose your battles, right? There are, I mean, it's funny. Cory Booker said something horrible that was on the roof recently, and basically, trying to deal with white privilege through empathy, and which is it was, I think, a little too broad. But what I think he was trying to say is that if given an opportunity to have a conversation with someone that you will have to interact with on a regular basis, have them to understand that hurts, right? Like, first, help me to understand where you got that. Like, really, lean in. Like, I help me, right? And then, of course, they're not going to be able to have anything real to say. So then you come back and say, well, I just want you to know that as an Afro-Indian, that hurt, right? That stereotype hurt me. Put that back on them. I put stuff back on people all the time. That ain't mine to carry. Your ignorance is not my baggage to carry. I'm going to help me. I'm going to give you a chance, right? I'm going to give you a chance. Explain, right? And then they're like, oh, well, okay, well, now you need to know how that felt. And if this is a friend, if this is somebody that you want to remain in your life, then they would be willing to put in the work, right?
I definitely agree. So with my Asian friend, I just considered her an associate because I felt for a long time like this is how she felt, and it wasn't until we had that conversation that it kind of cemented, like, this is her current belief.
Right.
And when I got to that point, I was like, like you said, I need you to explain it. I need you to really, break down what makes you think that.
Yes.
And then B, flipping it, like you said, and I was like, what if I came to you, and I was like, all Chinese people are this stereotype. How would that make you feel? And she was like, well, that's just not true. Like, my parents, this and that. And I'm like, okay, so my parents have never been, my dad's never been in jail. So, how does that relate to you? I have an entire family of direct relatives, and I can promise you 50% of them haven't been in and out of jail. So, this is kind of like...
Yeah, I mean, the stereotypes are going to be there.
Yeah, I think they're going to be there. I think the main thing is that you use it as a teacher for women, and I think you did that. And the fact that you guys were able to have that conversation, that dialogue, now she's going to think twice before she even say something like that. And it's so, I teach a course called the Black Masculinity, and we talk about a lot of uncomfortable conversation, right? And it's so, listen, it's not okay for the person to think certain things about someone, but however, that's what they learn, right? This is the thing that goes on here. This is the thing that goes on behind closed door in their home. But having a space, an educational space where you can have this conversation and where everyone can say, this is how I feel. But at the end of the conversation, you're able to educate that person. Well, hey, until you get in my shoes, you can't walk. You don't know what I walk. Well, you don't know what the truth is about me until you actually talk to me. So you pretty much have all this perception about it. And guess what? Most of these behaviors learned through the media and home. Like, everything my kids learn are what I teach them and what they see on TV. So if I'm teaching them negative about someone else, until they have been able to have an educational experience about what I'm teaching them, they're gonna keep having that. And I think what you do is you teaching that person and invite them to things like this. That person you should remain friends with them and find ways to invite them where she can be part of uncomfortable conversation.
Yeah, so I'm curious what all of you might think about the idea that there is a kind of racial reckoning happening right now,
Particularly
with the state of Virginia as the epicenter.
Yes.
And as well, I just want to throw in another idea that I heard at a forum here at Rutgers several years back from an anthropology professor who suggested that racism is going through something similar to a concept called the extinction burst, where when a species is endangered, it tries desperately to procreate so that it can continue to survive.
That's right.
And so just Those
Yes.
two concepts of, is it really always here to stay, or are we going through something that perhaps might be an extinction burst, and we're on the downswing?
That's actually being very hopeful,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Looking at the history of our country, I don't know. I mean, we have gone through these periods, and we have never gotten out of it, right? This morning, I got an email from a friend of mine who serves on a school, a board at a charter school. It's called the Cab Calloway School of Performing Arts. And Cab Calloway's daughter, Cabela Calloway, is on the board. Well, a student created a caricature of Cab Calloway. This is last week. He looks like he's blackface. This is Delaware. This is a school of the performing arts. Was approved by the dean, by the principal, and the fact that we are seeing this resurgence of blackface, right, shows that we're not as far as we thought we were, and blaming it on the political climate is a myth. It has always been here, but it was not given the platform to be showcased. So if you look at, even if you look at the migration, even though we weren't going to talk about it, but how we moved out of the South at the turn of the century up north, and then came back after the 1970s to this. We were running away from racism every single time, right? And now we're seeing it again. Now they're going back down south because of the cost of living. And I'm not as hopeful that we will move away from it. I think that somebody will be oppressed. What they look like, I'm not sure, because we are seeing the browning of our nation because of the number of individuals that are immigrating across the border without the wall,
or just in an airplane.
Yeah, well, which is how they're coming, right? They're not there. But anyway, I think the browning is going to change who's oppressed, but I think somebody's still going to be at the bottom. So I don't perceive all of a sudden we're going to be in some utopia because we decided to throw away our blackface. That's not what they do.
It's interesting you say that because one of my students last week said the same. Will things change? Will we ever see progress, or will things change, or should someone else replace us? Right? Will there ever be a place where there's no one who requests? I don't know. Because I see it in when I was growing up, I grew up in the first 12 years, 11 years of my life. I've never experienced any discrimination, any racism, until I moved here in my bed.
Well, individual.
Yeah, individual. I'm talking about me. No, I'm talking about me.
Yeah, but he was in a majority black, right? So yeah.
And then the policy, absolutely, and I'm coming back, right? So until I went back home.
Right.
When I at this age, and the type of some of the people I have to work with or I have to do business with, in order for me to move to do the work that I'm doing,
right?
In my own home in Haiti, right? You talking about colorism, right? You talking about racism. You talking about discrimination, classism,
yes. And
this is a predominantly black nation. Can you imagine? I mean, this is America. It's a melting pot. You have people from everywhere here. So if one small country where 98% of everyone look alike except color, can you imagine what this place is like? The experience is where you have everyone here. I don't know. I believe in hope. I believe in changes. Do I think things will be better? Eventually, I think it will. But then we have to really ask ourselves, do we really want change?
Yeah, Oh, I was going to say hope and change. Sound familiar?
And
2008, Obama. Everyone thought that we came to a post-racial society. We've arrived. I'm not racist. I voted for a black man. How many people heard that? Right? And then what happened after that?
The Trump's voters came out.
So, Daria,
Yes.
you know,
Yes.
It's my 12th way. We about to go.
I'll take it.
Okay.
I want to hear it. Don't y'all want to hear it?
Are you willing to
I
say?
was about to say.
Well, I was going to say for you.
My class is all back there.
Right. So I do a lot of research on modern racism. So it's like the evolution of overt racism to now covert racism. So I do think things get better, but all of the isms just change over time. So we know from our research it's just convert to a different form. So I think we will always go through these conversions of different forms. TiAira, first of all, let's get a shout out because TiAira is our executive producer for Beyond the Bill. Thank you. Somebody love the office of diversity and inclusion. That's the work that she does. So yes, get your question, TiAira.
So last week, our speaker, Princess Dancer, talked about racial capitalism.
Yes.
And he talked a little bit about the commodification of blackness and how racial capitalism really puts the concept of black and white against each other so that there's a acceleration in finance. So essentially, the notion was that the othering between both creates wealth for this country.
That's right.
And so essentially looking at the talented 10 and putting them in a position to ascribe to for everybody else creates more wealth and production essentially for society and that notion. So my question to you is, do you think that swing back and forth really has an impact on our wealth and economic system, and if that's why we see some of that, and then how do we challenge that? And how do we challenge apathy in our younger academics to then look at that and then kind of dig into it and have the fortitude to keep working at that?
I'll answer that in 5 seconds.
5 seconds, I know. It's like, So the
5-second version.
I was gonna say the clip notes. Is capitalism the root of all of this? And how do we address racism through looking at the way that we are all exploited, right? Black and white. Can it be changed? Is that the question?
Not necessarily change, but how do we bring awareness to this generation who seems to have?
So I think this generation, because we're seeing a lot of social entrepreneurship, a lot of entrepreneurial thinking, a lot of not buying into the institutions and the systems, including the financial institutions that have supported the capitalism for so long. I think the way that they operate and think, and this is a generalization, but looking at the millennials that I know and the Gen Z, they don't ascribe to the systems that have always kind of been the foundation of our society. So I think that there is a possibility if we continue to foster that in them, this entrepreneurial spirit, if that makes sense. I think that could be a game changer. I think that putting people in office, I'm back to that again, that know how to create the appropriate regulations so that we do have, some serious oversight when it comes to the financial sector, and also making it more available and the information more accessible to all people so that we understand what is happening. I think that's something that's important. But yeah, I mean, I think we all agree that it's still always about the 1%, and that's our country was founded on the exploitation of individuals, of separating so that those at the top would benefit. Yes.
I think that's the perfect segue to our parting thoughts today, which is the function of freedom is to free someone else. So that's Toni Morrison. Please join me in taking my wonderful
Thank you for listening to Beyond the Mill and for being a Diversity Matters subscriber. If you enjoyed the show and want to hear more, please post, talk about, and reshare our show with all of your friends and family. And leave us a favorable review so that it will make it easier for others to find us wherever they listen to podcasts. We cannot do this important work or keep it going without you, so we really appreciate your support. Beyond the Mill is produced by me, Oscar Holmes IV, and TiAira Neal, and receives generous support from Rutgers University-Camden's Office of Diversity Inclusion and Office of Student Affairs. Diversity Matters is produced by WH Consulting, a firm that provides a wide range of management consulting and professional services to individuals and organizations. Original music produced by Sincere Morton Murray. Until next time, peace and love.